Welcome back to another episode of the Sabre Roundtable. My name is Jonah, and today it is just me. My two other co-hosts currently reside in Orchard Park to await kickoff of the Bills 49ers game tonight. Um, I wanted to do an episode with the three of us, but obviously things got in the way, and also the way things just went for the Sabres. That being after sweeping the West Coast trip for the first time in over a decade. And if you want to get really technical with it, for the first time since like the 90s, getting two games above 500, the Sabres head back home and lose two straight, one in regulation to the Minnesota Wild, another to the Vancouver Canucks in overtime, and then they head to Long Island Saturday night and lose that one in regulation. And now, once again, we are back to 500. The Sabres are currently 11-11-2, and once again sit outside a playoff spot. I mean, you want to talk about kind of like just deflating all the momentum that you had coming out of a really unbelievably good story of sweeping the West Coast without Tage Thompson. Going back home for the two Thanksgiving games, losing them both, one of which not even scoring a goal in, and then heading to Long Island to play a not very good New York Islanders team, and then also getting shut out in that game. I think I can safely say this is the low point of the season thus far, which is kind of crazy to think about. You know, they're at 500. It's not like they're below it. They're not out of this playoff race whatsoever. But you know, one of the reasons I'm sort of relieved that JP, Christian, and I didn't really get together in our normal format is that this would have been a very similar episode to what we've done recently in compared to not last episode, because last episode the vibes were very, very high, but the few before then, and honestly stuff we've done multiple times this season. Just kind of riding that wave of kind of accepting what this team is. I mean, it's December 1st. You are pretty much looking at what this Buffalo Sabres team is going to be, barring some pretty insane turnaround. They're a 500 hockey team. They're mediocre, and unless some key things on the roster change, key things about the team change, that's what they're going to be. They'll be in the playoff race till the end, most likely. They'll probably be in it till the end of March, maybe even into April. Maybe they even do the thing. You know, I've said it a lot. They can still do it. They can still make the playoffs, but it shouldn't have to be like this, where in 2 years where the conference has been so very weak, you are a part of that week. You are a part of the mediocre teams that can't get their head above water. You had a chance. You were above water for a little bit, and we kind of went in depth about that last time, that it was a very key moment, that, you know, a trade, something to kind of keep the spirits high and the winning going. And look, I can't fault two of these three games. The Minnesota Wild game, they were the better team, struggled to really generate quality looks. You know, stop me if you've heard that before, but they were the better team and they deserved better, and it was a good game. I really felt nothing bad about that one. The Vancouver game, kind of the opposite. Same thing. They can't generate any offense until like the last 10 minutes of the game. And I'll give them credit, generating offense in the last 10 minutes of the game. I was pretty ready to chalk that one up. And, just the way it was going, Dylan Cousins taking those two bad penalties in the third, and then hilariously Tage Thompson taking a slap shot from the blue line with no traffic in front. That shot being blocked, leading to a breakaway that the Canucks would score on. It was kind of the opposite, but I give them credit. They battled back and got a point. And I was kind of fine with these two losses if they won the Islanders game. And they had no excuse not to. The Islanders were also on a back-to-back with travel. And, dude, it looked like the Islanders were rested. Like, they came out flying and they got the Sabres into their... They did with the Sabres exactly what they wanted. They did to the Sabres what they exactly planned to do. Just completely shut them down, and 2 out of 3 games the Sabres have been shut out. So, it's really more of the same. It doesn't feel like they're getting. I mean, they're not getting unlucky. They're really not. If anything, they're getting lucky. This is it was around this time 2 years ago that the 8-game losing streak had just concluded. And coming out of that winning streak, like, you could feel like the team was getting unlucky. There was kind of frustration building, but like they were just losing games, and they were all in regulation, obviously, and it was just incredibly frustrating. But like the way that losing streak ended, it's like they scored 7 goals against the Canadiens and then 6 goals against the Blues. And then I think they scored like 5 goals against Tampa Bay and an OT loss or something along those lines. Like the scoring, like they were knocking on the door, and it finally exploded. And right now you don't feel that. You feel the opposite. It's really been a point of just wondering, why are they playing this way? Why are they playing such low event hockey? Why can't they generate any offense the way that 2 years ago it looked like it was natural for them? Like, yeah, the league adjusts, but it seems like they adjusted too, and just all in the worst way possible. And it's just not how I expected them to play under Lindy Ruff. Now, I can continue down this tangent, talk about the last 3 games, kind of do a normal episode on my own, but what I really was happy about, or somewhat relieved about, that we weren't really meeting, is that the 3 of us weren't meeting. It was just going to be more of the same of, complaining about stuff like that. So I figured it was the perfect time for a mailbag episode. Like I said, that Islanders game is probably the low point of the season to this point. So, a lot of the questions they're still pretty similar to like what it's been over the past few months, but the pressure is starting to mount here. You can't fool anybody watching, because half of at least the most vocal people are the most diehard fans, and really it's most of the people left are just the diehards, the people who follow very intently, because after so many years you can only stomach so much, and people that are smarter than myself have chosen to distance themselves from the everyday ongoings of the team. I am not one of those people, and there's a lot of people like me out there who just can't really take the mediocrity anymore, and just can't stomach doing this over and over again, snapping back and forth between above 500, below it. It's just, you're watching a mediocre 500 hockey team right now, and there's there's a lot of things to talk about, how it's gotten to that, why it's gotten to that. So without even wasting any time, let's get right into the questions and the topics that you guys sent in. So firstly, thank you as always for sending those in. It is always fun to do these because the three of us, we get into our own little bubbles and talk about the stuff we think we should talk about, but there's always listeners that kind of want to hear a different perspective or just a take on something we haven't touched on. So that's why these are always a fun exercise. So let's jump right into really the main question that I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about. So this one is from Zach Benson on Twitter. What's the trade situation in Buffalo? We clearly know GM Kevin Adams is on the phones, but is he waiting for the perfect player to enter the market? Is it truly an internal cap situation? Is he trigger shy? I'm just lost with it. So, look, there's an uncomfortable truth that everybody's aware of. We're all aware of it. No trade clauses, no move clauses. They exist. And given the state of the franchise, the Sabres are going to be on most lists. Any scenario where they're ever to trade for a player with a no trade clause, Buffalo was likely on it, and they just had to waive it. It's just the truth of the situation. They are on these lists, and it's a hurdle, and that's why I'm the guy that's like you need to find a trade. Like it doesn't matter. It really does. Like it matters, but you need to find the trade that isn't there. I don't think he's trigger shy whatsoever. I don't. It's not any consolation really. Like he's not trigger shy right now. I think he was a bit trigger shy in the summer with some things. But that's really where we have to jump back to for this. The summer. Trades are hard. Trades are very hard for a franchise that is in the state that the Sabres are in. That is why money talks. That is why leaving $6 million open in cap space heading into the season made zero sense. Let's put it this way. Jason Zucker. Jason Zucker was traded last season. It was from Arizona to Nashville, right? I don't think it was the other way around. I think it was Arizona to Nashville. I would guarantee I would pretty much guarantee he had a no trade clause or some sort of trade protection. B, I would guarantee, like, if the Sabres tried to trade for him at some point in the season, he's going to say no. Like, I don't want to go to Buffalo. Like, yeah, they're sort of in the race, but no, not really. But he signed here in the summer. And do you want to know why? It's because they offered him $5 million. Money talks, man. It is infinitely easier to try and convince somebody in a period where they're open to change, switching hockey teams, seeing their fit, rather than mid-season. It becomes a conversation of, hey, this is how much we want you, versus, hey, like, we want you, please come here, when a trade, when you're trying to get somebody to waive a no trade clause. It's the truth. It's the truth. Jason Zucker is like the perfect example. NHL veteran, been around the league, probably wouldn't waive his no trade clause in a trade situation, but you offered him more money than he would have gotten anywhere else because you had more money than any other team, and he came. That's really what it comes down to. That's why it makes no sense to wait for like you're handcuffing yourself because it's infinitely harder to look for a trade that will use up the remainder of your cap space. So, the trade situation with Adams is it's frustrating. He still has to find a trade, but it's mistakes of the months past. Not doing this back then, not using that cap space. And I say Adams, and anybody that's listened to this podcast for a while now knows I'm a big proponent of the whole internal cap thing. It's I'm sure Pagula plays a hand in this. Not wanting to go all out in free agency. So, I think, like, does anybody believe he's not calling teams? It's a joke. It's a running joke. It is funny that we keep hearing it over and over again, but, like, I believe it. And I also have reason to believe it. It's hard for me to feel bad, because if you just were aggressive in free agency, made your team better, then you wouldn't be in this spot. Because now it's December, you still haven't made a trade with that money, your team is middling at best, and because if he goes in the summer and he spends the money, are we really getting as mad about him not making a trade right now? Like, we would still want him to, but we could at least say you tried. So, to close on this question, the trade market, it's finding somebody that will want to come here. And yeah, it is finding the right deal. I mean, it's tough at this point in the season. Not, most teams, if they're making a trade, it's they want to get equal back. And I think, like, the Rangers are the perfect example. Like, you're not hypothetically trading for Chris Kreider for, like, Isaac Roseanne picks and such. Like, no, the Rangers want to keep being good. So it's tough. It's just they put themselves in this spot. Kind of continuing on with this idea. This one comes from Anton Sperry on Instagram. Most think they should, but do you think GM Kevin Adams will trade for an established top six forward? When you say established top six, I think that's a loose definition, but I think we know what you like. This guy's he's not leaving the top six. And an established top six forward in season, like, how often are those acquired? It's not often. I do think he's going to make a trade. Like, I do. I just don't know how imminent. I think he'll make one before the trade deadline. I hope it doesn't take that long. But, established top six forward, I don't know if that's what they're going to find mid-season. You're going to have to find, like, a Michael Bunting, Oliver Bjorkstrand. Like, you're not going to trade for Chris Kreider. I just don't believe it. And I don't believe he'd be willing to come here anyways. So, top six forward ad. I mean, I hope I'm happy to be proven wrong. I have a history of jinxing things, but do I think they're gonna do it? Not to that level. Last trade one we'll do. This one's from Jerome Lewis 387 on Instagram. They ask, do you think they might make a drastic trade? It's another roller coaster season so far. So, given what I was just saying, my answer is no. I don't think they're going to make a big core swap in season. Like, you're not going to see Dylan Cousins traded. You're not going to see Jack Quinn even traded, I don't think. Or like Matthias Samuelsson. After the season, that the question absolutely becomes maybe. I think if Matthias Samuelsson gets hurt again before the end of the season, I kind of think his days are numbered. Like, they just can't keep doing this, and they have to shake it up. And I think the other big one is it's Dylan Cousins. The guy's not having a good season. Big third period against the Vancouver Canucks, but it's just more. It's worse than last year, which is insane. I never would have thought he would have been as bad or worse than last year. And I think he has been. It's not good. And, like, we'll get in more into it as we get along some of these questions. I don't think it's fully there. It's not fully on him, but it's not going well. And it's 2 consecutive seasons of being underwhelming. So I think the drastic trades that I'm sure a lot of people want to fire off right now, it's not going to happen in season. They just don't happen in season. It's an off-season discussion. Next one is from official Colin Smith on Instagram. Why are the Sabres playing this type of hockey? Lindy never played this ever. Yeah, you're right, man. It's weird. Obviously, when he took over in the late '90s from Ted Nolan with the Hasek and Pekka Core, like yeah, they were still playing low event, but that's just how the team was built. Heading into the 2000s, once more of Vanek, Roy, and Pominville slowly started to seep into the lineup, and then post lockout, yeah, all of his teams have been high events teams, and even I mean, you could probably even make the case that in towards the end of the Hasek era that they were still playing that way. They just had Hasek in net. It's weird. It's really weird. I was really excited that seeing what he did with the Devils and seeing how the moment he left last season, the moment he got fired last season by New Jersey and they replaced him with Travis Green, all of their offensive metrics dipped. I thought that was like a surefire uh, arrow to the fact that it's because of Lindy. Like that's just the way he coaches. His Dallas teams reflected that, and obviously his Sabres teams did that coming out of the lockout. It's really weird that 2 months into the season, we're still seeing the same stuff we saw in Prague. I don't know if, like, I would imagine he's telling them, like, you got to get to more prime areas. I would imagine that's what the data guys are telling them. But, oh, man, a part of me really worries that, there was a conversation in the offseason between Kevin Adams and Lindy Ruff, and Adams saying something along the lines of, we've been a real perimeter team these past 2 seasons, which is true. Even 22, 23, they were a phenomenal rush team. But, in zone, they left some stuff to be desired. And I think more net front, greasy, tip in, rebound goals. Wanting more of that was not a bad thing or misguided. But it's their entire thing now. I mean, I don't even like. Here's a question, and we asked this a lot last year. What is the Buffalo Sabres identity right now? I don't think they have one. They still have not had one since 22, 23. And this was supposed to be a roster with an identity. Even if they weren't high flying, which they that should be their identity, they were going to be tough to play against. The revamped bottom six, this and that. Even that, the bottom six it's not, or at least the fourth line was supposed to be the line that brought the edge to their game. Lafferty's been a disaster. Malenstein's left a lot to be desired. Krebs, it's more of the same from what we've seen the past few seasons, and their best one, Abe Kubel, is in Lindy Ruff's doghouse. So the fourth line was supposed to be like one of the main things that they've overhauled, and folks, I miss Zemgus Girgensons. I sort of miss Kyle Okposo. I was never one of the big opposers of that. I felt it was time for maybe a new switch, but Girgensons is better than any of those guys. Okposo, I mean, at this point in his career, no, but it was better the past few seasons, and it's one of the main issues when this team when it comes to generating offense, because none of those guys are great at it. It but to get back to like the overall team play style, yeah, it's worrying, man. Like where, like that Tage Thompson is that a turnover? I don't know. He took a slap shot from the blue line. It hit someone's shin pads, and it resulted in a breakaway goal. I mean, it's hilarious. I was laughing at it. Seriously, it was kind of one of those. So it's just so funny in the moment. That's like their offense. Like that's where half their shots come from. I get it. It's somewhat like your strength lies in your defense star power. You got Darlene, you got Owen Power, you got Bowen Byram. but it's not sustainable. It's not a sustainable form of generating offense. And if they don't fix it, they're not gonna make the playoffs. It's just the truth. I don't think this power play is gonna get sorted out. I just don't. Um, they need their 5v5 offense and just overall play. They need it to carry them, and they're one of the worst 5v5 shared teams in the NHL right now. I think I saw Jay Fresh's post had them like 27th, right around like the Chicago Blackhawks. Like, dude, what are we doing here? Like, it's not good enough. And if they don't change it soon, then they are toast in the playoff race. They will never get ahead in it. Speaking of special teams, this one is from David Capello on Twitter. How, if even possible, can the special teams issues get fixed? Is it coaching? Do they need to add new players, change the mix of existing players per line? Oh man, where do I start with this goddamn power play? I don't like to take a victory laps on a lot of stuff, but I like to hold my head high that I feel like I was one of the first people to talk about like the power play was not good back in 22, 23. It I can remember like when the show was a lot smaller than even what it is now. I just remember constantly coming on here and saying like it's just Tage Thompson taking one-timers. And man, just when last season ended, everybody knew it was arguably the biggest change they had to make, more than any roster additions, because it was just so unbelievably bad for no reason. And we've come into this season and it still sucks. It's not good. It it's amazing. It really is amazing that Lindy that Rob Ray on the broadcast last night against the Islanders is saying that there's nobody's moving. And he's right. It how can you possibly like this team has a video like the Sabres have a video team, right? The answer is yes, because the video crew had a great challenge yesterday. They got a New York Islanders goal overturned. What are these guys saying when they're reviewing the power play tapes? What is Seth Appert coming away from those meetings or those sessions thinking has to be changed? Does he think anything has to be changed? Because, dude, this is like I thought last year was a complete anomaly of like nothing being changed when something needed to. They've made like there's just so like no familiarity, no set plays, no comfortable go-to options when they get into the zone. I know people have their gripes about getting into the zone. I'm not concerned. That's just execution. Like the system isn't bad. They do the drop pass. People hate the drop pass, but guess what? Every team in the NHL does it. It's just your team. This team just does it worse than most teams. Nobody would care about the break-in if what was happening in zone made up for it. And it's terrible. I mean, the San Jose Sharks were whipping the puck around the zone in that game last I don't even know what was it, last Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago. It's insane that like I get it. Okay, Seth Appert, I don't even know if I don't think he ever ran the power play for Rochester. I know for a fact Michael Pekka ran it when he was coach. Last year, I don't know who ran it. I would guess that an assistant coach did it because that's usually how this goes. Like right now. Last season, it was Matt Ellis. Remember towards the end of the season, Don Granato had to step in and help out with it, which, once again, didn't change anything. I continue to be baffled by the fact that they chose to do that. That they, if you want to bring him on the bench, fine, but like make him an associate coach and go out and get a real power play coach, man. They just have no. The one thing that has changed this season is they try to get it to the bumper. That's it. No movements, no cross crease plays, no barely any cross ice plays. And I think the personnel could be switched. Jason Zucker was great for a little while. He's kind of stagnated. He's had a rough few weeks here. So has Peterka. Peterka's really been playing rough the last few weeks. And he's just never been a good power play player. Yeah, like you could change around personnel, but it's the same conversation we've been having. Like changing the personnel is not going to make this significantly better. They have a crappy system in place, and I don't know if it's going to be fixed because I don't have any faith that Seth Appert can fix it. And that's just incredibly frustrating, incredibly embarrassing that a core need from going into last offseason has not really been addressed. And they tried. We were told it was going to be different. That's the worst part. They recognized it. They told us it was going to be different. And it's the same old story. Next one, we'll take a little break from the negativity for a sec. This one's from Ryan Sanders on Twitter. What are your opinions on Byram so far this season? Personally, I think he's been a great addition since the trade, and I believe he also deserves some power play time. Well, he does get it sometimes. Sometimes he's on the second power play unit. I don't disagree with that. I think he's been good. Like, genuinely, he's a really curious case when you look at the numbers. He doesn't drive a lot of offense, but pucks go in the net when he's on the ice, And I think, like, this is a player who just cannot be separated from Rasmus Dahlin. I think he's kind of like what Philip Hronek is to Quinn Hughes. Not someone who's great on their own, but like can really help be another piece for your franchise defenseman. And I think I saw the Matt Dumba comparison was brought up, and I think that's a really good one. It's Matt Dumba was a player who never always had a great reputation, A, because he was a right-hand shot, but B, he was very productive in earlier seasons. But it slowly dropped off, and I think it kind of became known he wasn't strong on his own. But if you put him with the right guy and put him with the right deployment, pucks would go in the net when he's on the ice. And so long as that player can maintain average defense, you have a good player. So, yeah, I've really liked Byram this season. He's far from any of the issues from this team. And I think the contract situation is going to be very interesting because he holds a lot of leverage. He's scoring at a decent rate, and he's playing with your franchise defenseman and your comparable, the Philip Hronek contract is probably going to be brought up, and that was, a 7x7? So that's going to be an interesting thing to follow in the offseason. But, yeah, I really can't complain about Byram. I think he's been pretty good, and you've seen the Middlestat comparisons die down. Middlestat's had a rough few weeks, and I don't think there's a victory lap to take on this trade because I think both teams got what they needed. I just I had no time for this team would be so much better with Casey Middlestat. That wasn't the truth, folks, because as we're going to talk about in our next question, Henry Jokiharju would probably be on the top pair, and somebody worse would be on the second pair. Well, you'd probably still have Jacob Bryson on the second pair. So Byram is an important part of this team. Speaking of Jokiharju, this next one is from Sabres Montreal on Twitter. Clifton and Gilbert seem to be a good defensive third pair. I am not sure why Jokiharju has been playing all these games. Well, firstly, the reason Jokiharju's been playing so much is because he's a right-hand shot. And Lindy said multiple times he likes the left-right balance better. And the only times we haven't seen it be that way this season, the only pair that isn't that way is Rasmus Dahlin and Bowen Byram. So, but it's who cares? They're so good. It doesn't matter. That's why Jokiharju is still in the top four. They haven't acquired a top four defenseman, and it's, God damn it, it was so telegraphed that this was going to happen, dude. So telegraphed. That might be my biggest complaint of the offseason. At least with the top six, there was like, okay, maybe Zach Benson can do it, or maybe Cousins and Quinn really bounce back. I don't know. It's still dumb. Both are still dumb. The fact that they didn't get either a top six forward or a top 4D is still mind numbingly infuriating. But with the defense, it's like, dude, you were setting yourself up for this. You were setting yourself up for Yoki Haru on the second pair again, and it's been terrible, man. He frustrated the hell out of me on that second Islanders goal last night. Just more of the same, like stupid point shots, being blocked, getting caught up ice, just so infuriating. But they can't change it because who are you going to throw up there? I mean, I would throw Bryson up there, but even then, like, that's not a top four defenseman. Why is this still a thing? Why? And they clearly never had a plan to play Samuelson in the top four. Why was there no single move made in the offseason? Why? So many right-hand defensemen were on the markets. I don't even know. Or even like overpaying for Timothy Liljegren a few weeks ago. He's on the first power play unit for the Sharks. I don't know. It's just so dumb that they walked themselves into this. It's such a black hole on this team, and really, it's a black hole, or it's a pancaking issue for the roster because it's all over the roster. Stuff like this, guys playing where they shouldn't be playing, and Yoki Haru is just like the biggest. It's just most obvious example of this, that they just walk themselves into this situation. And touching on Clifton and Gilbert, like Clifton's been good this season, and he's been pretty solid in the third pair. Look, Dennis Gilbert's a seventh defenseman. I'm surprised he actually hasn't gone in recently, but the guy can't play any higher than a third pair role. If you want to mix, if you're questioning why he's been sat for the last few weeks here, I guess. But, like, I remember back in 2022, I hope my memory is not wrong. I'm fairly certain of this, and I really hope someone listening also remembers this. The 2022 trade deadline, there was talk, he wasn't even signed yet, of acquiring Owen Power's partner. Back then, a veteran to play with him as he got into the league. They couldn't find it, didn't trade for one, and to end that season, they threw him with Henry Jokiharju. And for 2.5 seasons since, it's still been Henry Jokiharju. Who is Owen Power's best D partner been? I don't know. I don't know if there's an answer. They've all been underwhelming. Like, is the defense, or is it not the strength of your team, or at least the backbone? Then your top two pairs should be set in stone. You should have four defensemen that are top four, and like the bar's not high. Owen Power can drag somebody up with him. He can't drag Henry Jokiharju up with him. It's a mismatched style. Get this guy a defensive partner, someone who can help him out. Like, Owen Power's not a perfect player, but Henry Jokiharju and even like Jacob Bryson, like, they're just not good complements to what needs to be covered up when Owen Power's out there. They need just. I would almost argue it's as big of a need as a top six forward, but I don't know. I don't know which one's a bigger need. All right, as we as we head towards the end here, let's touch on something that was sort of talked about today in the Sabres community. This one is also from official Colin Smith. Is this core as talented as we think? Now, it's an interesting question. It comes down to this. Are they overrated, or are they underperforming? It's not as if like the Buffalo Sabres are still like an 85-point team with Cousins playing like his 22-23 self and with Quinn playing also like his 22-23 self, and it's just more of the same, and you're sitting here not getting any different results. Then maybe that's the conversation. I just don't know if those two are fully cooked. I What frustrates me so much about the Sabres' inability or unwillingness to go all in, it's that it goes back to the Okiharu thing where guys are playing over their heads. Like Jack Quinn, the struggles he's having this season would not be nearly as magnified if he was on the third line. And guess what? His best stretch of the season was what? The West Coast trip when he was on the third line. And, when you're in your cup window, your contention window, you wouldn't want him to be on your third line. But you're in a stage, right? Like, it only gets harder from here. Each passing season, it only gets harder. You get less money. You have to dish out more money to guys you want to keep around. And keeping cap space open year over year, sometimes in double digits, it's infuriating because it's a wasted opportunity. And it puts guys in uncomfortable spots. Like Jack Quinn should maybe be in a third line role right now, or you should have the flexibility to put him there. You put Kulik, Quinn, and Zucker together like they were on that West Coast trip. Or how about even last night on Long Island? After the first period, Quinn goes from the first line to the third line. Moving Quinn from the first line to the third, even just out of the top six to the third line, makes Dylan Cousins have to play with a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old. That should not be happening at this point in the rebuild, in the contention window. Christian brought up a great point a few episodes ago that, like, Dylan Cousins has been playing with basically rookies the past 3 seasons. Not fully, but like his most common line mates, what's the average age of his line mates since the 22-23 season? It's in the low 20s, man. I think back to like the 21-22 season. Like you were in this stage of like not knowing, like was the Tage Thompson breakout legit? The Sabres sort of made sure it was because they put him with Jeff Skinner and Alex Tuch, 2 great players that like Thompson was good to begin that season. He was a monster by the end. And I think those 2 were just so instrumental in helping him get to that point. Dylan Cousins really just hasn't had any sort of safety net close to that. And getting another top 6, like getting an established top 6 forward, man, that would have helped. Having someone he could bounce off of and build chemistry with, or like maybe on some nights he gets dragged up by that player. This team has basically needed another Alex Tuch for a few seasons now, and they're still looking for him. So, is this core as talented as you think? Well, I think Tage Thompson's a franchise center. The way he's playing this season, yeah. Rasmus Dahlin is absolutely one. And dude, I was thinking about this. All the bad thoughts raced through your mind. If this season ends badly, we're getting to their wasting Rasmus Dahlin's career. Like that starts becoming a narrative. I mean, he's been, in my mind, a top 5 player at his position for the past 3 years. And you haven't had anything to show for it. And like that's your player. Like that is your guy. Maybe on a case by case basis. Like maybe like Tage Thompson has been better this season. Dahlin is your captain, your highest paid player. He's your franchise. It's funny. Like the rhetoric is like they haven't built around like the core of the Sabres. Like if Terry Pagula wasn't spending money on the Bills, it's not, oh, he's not spending money on this young core. It's, oh, he's not spending to build around Josh Allen. And that's just the superstar nature of the sport, for the QB position. But like they're not, like Terry Pagula and Kevin Adams are not building around Rasmus Dahlin properly. They haven't gone all in for him once. They haven't, like, if you're him, what if this was like a contract year for him? Instead of getting that done before the start of last season, imagine if they had to carry that into this past summer or even like right now. What's the talk? What if Rasmus Dahlin goes to the negotiating table and is like, why should I sign here? Like, what have you proven? How have you proven you're committed to winning? How have they proved that? I mean, I tweeted out the other night and last night, like they just haven't surrounded this core with pieces to help them take the next step. Everything has fallen on the shoulders of the young core. They go as far as they themselves take them. And to a degree, like, yeah, they got to carry the load. But why are you not giving them all the help in the world to help them do that? It makes no sense. And I don't want to answer the question, is this core as talented as we think? Because A, I don't think we really know yet because there's just been so many up and downs. And B, I want to see them like have the talent around them before I make that judgment. I think your main guys like Tage Thompson, yes. Dahlin, yes. Absolutely as talented as you think. Sure, from there it kind of becomes some question marks, but like UPL has shown the ability to be one of the better goalies in the NHL. JJ Peterka has been a really good player at points. Like, I don't want to ask that question because then it just becomes like what we went through towards the end of the 2010s and into the 2020s. Like, is Eichel good enough? Is Reinhart good enough? Is O'Reilly? Like, I don't want to go through that again. How about you build them the best roster you can, and then we'll go from there. Then we'll think about core changes and such. I can't give up on a core that like has that you have a franchise center and a franchise defenseman. Build friggin' around it. Try to. Please. All right. We'll close with this one from JD Buffalo, who always asks us the tough and hard-hitting questions. As a fan of the team, what's even left to hold on to? The bulk of this group has proven they can't consistently be even average for multiple seasons now, and the GM clearly won't make an impact trade or spend to anywhere near the cap. So how does it get better, and why will it? So also, left a little side note here, if JP is still defending Adams and the build, can we officially confirm that he's related / a plant for the team? Obviously, JD, he's not here today, but he did see that. He got a good laugh out of that. I think what's even left to hold on to? Well, I think it's a tough question. Hockey's a dumb sport, and they might get in this year, in a weak Eastern Conference, and like, yeah, it sucks. It sucks. That's what you have to hold on to. But that is something to look at. I think also maybe having some belief in Lindy Ruff. I think it is extremely weird that they haven't been playing the way his past teams have played. So maybe there's a hope and there's a change coming up. Like last year's team hit rock bottom against the Blue Jackets and came out against the Leafs and said, oh, they were going to play the old way, and ended up not doing so, but there was a realization there. Maybe there's a realization on the horizon for the Sabres. Also, we've witnessed players be bad for half seasons and then just friggin' turn it on. I mean, Casey Middlestat, case in point. Dylan Cousins could wake up. Jack Quinn could wake up. And even, I don't want to say the GM clearly won't make a trade. It's just he it's hard. It's the H word. It's hard with what he has to jump around. But if he does, it could spell some positive things. If they get Jack Quinn out of the top six, or even Zach Benson, because even I don't even think he should be there. He should be in a third line role that suits him. I think has a positive if that has a positive effect on the team, that could help them play better. I understand that it's really hard to hold on to any sort of hope for this team, and sometimes, like, yeah, you need to put things in perspective. Like, they're 11-11-2. Weirder things have happened. I had so many not so many 0506 tweets, but I had a few 0506 tweets lined up. If they beat the Wild heading into Thanksgiving, both teams would have been 12-9-2 after 22 games heading into Thanksgiving. It would have been the first time they headed into Thanksgiving in a playoff spot since 2018, but then before that, like 2011, 2012, I think. They can still fight and claw their way. Like, I haven't doubted this group's heart, efforts, whatever you want to call it. Like, I think there's no quitters here. And I feel like you've seen that. Like, I like watching the Senators right now. Like, they've kind of like sort of turned it around. They're playing better. But after like a few rough games, like, they were ready to like call out the locker room, call it toxic, trade a few court pieces, and like, I still don't think we're there yet with this team. I still think it's a good group of guys. I still think it's players that want to be here and really want to win. I think they just need more help, and they need to change the way they're playing. They need to get it out of their head that point shots from the blue line is not, like, even the Carolina Hurricanes like to mix in some slot shots here and there. The power play also has to sort of wake up. Like, I don't know what changes things there. I think there was a Blue and Gold Insights a few weeks ago, but I don't. JP, Chris, and we didn't attend. I think it was a player one. Adams was not in attendance. It would be really nice to like get him in front of a microphone. It would be nice to get him on the radio here and there, just to like sort of hear where he's at. We haven't heard him since, I think, before the season. I need a mic in front of his face to hear like what's going on with the cap space here. Like, why are we still doing this, man? Where is it being spent? Or why isn't it being spent? And I don't know. Like, what's left to hold on to? I think it's the fact that we've all been here before. We've been in this exact same spot. Honestly, for worse teams. I mean, I think being mediocre is a worse fate than being bad. But I still think that maybe there's an unexpected trade. I don't know. I think what you should continue to hold on to as we move along here is that hopefully the pressure does begin to mount. That's like the worrying. Like, the one silver lining is that they're 14 years into this almost. Like, you can't ignore that. Like, if this was like, look at the Red Wings right now. You even look at the Senators. They're not deep enough in their droughts yet for like the overwhelming negativity to kind of engulf them and force them to do something. Like, this team, the drought has forced decisions. It forced the Casey Middlestat trade, I think. It forced Don Granato being fired. It forced a lot of things. So I guess your only hope is to hope that eventually Lindy Ruff kicks things into gear, or that something does change, that they get a trade that juices them, and I don't know, we can roll from here. They're not a bad team. I think that's maybe that's what you hold on to. They're not bad. They're just mediocre. Mediocre teams get in. It sucks. I hate it. I hate that they strive for mediocrity, but mediocrity can get them in, and if they get into the playoffs, if they get some playoff revenue, maybe the guy upstairs will open the wallet. So that's what I have to that. I don't have any super optimistic answer because nothing has really changed. We are really still in the same spot. So that is where we stand. So I think that's going to wrap up this monthly mailbag. I mean, I know I'm doing this in December. Maybe we'll have one around Christmas time again. Maybe stuff has changed. I don't know. As always, thank you for sending them in. They're always a good exercise. My throat is killing me, though. These always do a number. I do wish JP and Christian were here, especially just to hear some different thoughts. I know it's tough. It is like an echo chamber. I'm speaking to my computer screen right now, but hopefully something does change. I hate doing this, man. I really hate doing. I hate talking. I hate talking about, is the core good enough? Are they wasting Rasmus Dahlin's career? Like, man, I thought these days were going to be gone. Like, just at least for a little bit, just like root for a good hockey team for a few years of my life. Oh well, this is where the real fans are made. This is where the loyalty is tested, and if you're still watching, I'll be watching Tuesday night. Nothing will turn me away from them. It's a curse, but it is what it is. So thank you very much for sending these questions in. Thank you if you made it to the end of this episode. And I guess we'll see you guys next time. I'd assume we'd record Thursday night, back to our normal thing. Talk a little bit about some league-wide stuff. Hopefully the Sabres have gotten back on the winning track. I don't know. Hold strong, folks. Hold strong. Better days are hopefully coming. So, thank you very much for listening. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, go Sabres.